Still with me, trial attorney Gabriel Sepulveda Sanchez. Gabriel, you know, it is a fair question at this point, one that was posed by many of the parents. If not this case, what case?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, you know, how much more damage does someone have to do to warrant the death penalty? You know, and I think the fact is, though, we're in Florida. It requires a unanimous jury to come up with this death penalty, the death penalty. And something went wrong here. I really think that my job as a prosecutor would be to make sure I get the right panel on there and get rid of anyone that's going to have any sort of sympathy for someone that's had a, difficult upbringing, mental illness. The fact is that he knew what was right from wrong. And I think I heard a commentator say that one of the jurors said, if someone's mentally ill, I can't put them to death. Well, that's one of the big questions that's one of the big issues that I'd be concerned about when selecting a jury for this case. And, the fact is that under the law, mental illness doesn't necessarily mean insanity. You got to know, if you know right from wrong, and you have mental illness, that doesn't make you exculpable from this act.
But Gabriel, let me just make a point here, and I'll make it to you. I would never make this to the parents. But at the end of the day, I agree with you 100%. But I push back on the idea that this was the wrong result, and I'll tell you why. He's not being allowed off for this crime. He knew right from wrong. And he is going to serve the rest of his life in prison. And I think it may be a difficult time for him because he's already seeing he's had troubles in prison. So I'm not sure how that's going to turn out for him. But I will say this. The death penalty is the ultimate in our justice system. And it is set up in ways that make it very difficult for a jury to do that. Case in point, only one juror need to disagree. And in this case, I'm not sure how many. Word is there was one and then a couple of others joined. But at the end of the day, it's set up that way because we do understand that is the ultimate punishment. And I posit that we do that because we understand how serious this is. As a country, this is the approach we choose to take. And in that way, maybe it was the right verdict.
Yeah, very good point. That system is set up for everyone as far as anyone facing the death penalty. And I think you made a good point, too. And there's got to be protections in place for criminal defendants, too. That's the country we live in. And that same right is applied to me and you. So I do agree with you. And I think it's very difficult to hear these parents because the reality is that this guy showed no mercy. He didn't think about any mitigating factors before he pulled that trigger. So just to hear the hatred these parents have for Nikolas Cruz, it's really difficult to hear. But putting themselves in my shoes too, I'd be filled with anger right now also. So
yeah, absolutely, Gabriel. Their feelings are perfectly understandable, and as you said earlier, rightfully so, our hearts go out to them, no question about it. But at the end of the day, when we look at situations like this, it's the reason. I hearken back to the elocution when he pleaded guilty to the charges. Nikolas Cruz said he would want the family members to decide his punishment. He actually said those words in the courtroom. And we know what the result would have been. It's clear from the statements we hear, but that's the reason we don't do it that way, right? We do put it in the hands of impartial jurors, right?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, and I think, this case came down to it. There's a few guys, the prosecutors did have a challenge in making sure all of them are going to vote unanimously for the death penalty. And you got to really vet those jurors and really talk about the main issues here. And I think one of those main issues was mental illness. I would have really spent a lot of time on mental illness and having the trauma this defendant has had, So I think I'm curious to see how that played out when they impaneled that jury. But I know that's one of the things that they ended up losing, not getting the result they wanted is because of that very issue that I was concerned about.
Fair enough.
But yeah, it is. Yeah.
All right, Gabriel, stand by. I really appreciate your comments and your insights. I really do.